Over to me.
All right, you're good to begin, Victoria.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's change my screen so I can see all your pretty faces. Okay, so yeah, welcome. I would like to just start off by dropping and connecting into the field. Um, for me, this field has a lot of meaning and has a lot of connection. And this golden temple for me is not just, a made up name that we use for marketing or something. It is a place. It's a shamanic template, it's a grid. And if we just close our eyes and just start to tune into this golden temple, I just invite you to start to feel where you're at in relationship to the golden temple now. Some of you who have left the container, some of you who are entering the container. And feel yourself in relationship to this golden temple, the steps to the golden temple, the giant doorways to the golden temple, the activated grid of the temple floor where healing and Eros remains in pure innocence, where you can receive, where you can give, where you can offer yourself on the altar for the collective that we belong to. And just start to breathe that in. Notice any visuals that come to mind. Notice your own relationship to Eros in this moment. How you feel about it, how it's working through your life, whether it be dormant, active, numb, minimal judgment, just observing what's there. Maybe you find yourself on the outsides of the temple as a guardian, or right in the temple floor, offering healing, offering your priestess, your priest. Maybe you're here to receive. And this is part of the activation of this golden temple. Recognizing where you are at in relationship to the golden temple. Recognizing what's available on this temple floor, which is what I want to go into today. So, inviting you to come back to your body. And just starting to drop into your sensuality through sound, through movement, through breath, through touch. Oh. Noticing any thoughts, any emotions, any feelings and sensations. And that erotic current, that thread of aliveness that lives within. Feeling it in relationship to this golden temple, to this space that we have cultivated. I'm going to invite you to start just to rub the hands together. And just building up a little bit of warmth inside of the palms. And when you feel that warmth, just adding a little bit of space so you can feel the energy of this eros that you've cultivated. And in your own time, if it feels right, just turning it towards the screen, just to share with the group, with the collective field that we're holding here today. And just breathing in that shift from your vertical current into the horizontal. Notice any changes in your field, whether there's more eros, if there's less. And on the count of three, we're going to come just to land in our space in this container back in the 3D, out from the Golden Temple, out from this shamanic space that we've been cultivating to be here now. So on the count of three, I invite you just to clap your hands and come to land here with us. I'm in for 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. All right, well, it's very beautiful to meet you all. And thank you for going there with me today and really exploring this experience of what the Golden Temple feels like in my body and how I transmit it. I'm sure it's a little different to how Elizabeth does it. I'm excited to be here with you guys. I don't think I've been back inside of the New Paradigm container since I sold the business, since I let go, and since I let Elizabeth has been the dean, the director. And so it's quite a experience just to come back and feel that Golden Temple and feel how it shifted, how it feels, how it is now, and that's the beauty of what I actually really deeply desired around how this experience would be actually of building and cultivating this energy together. It's like it was never supposed to be the Victoria transmission, it was supposed to be a collective field that we all come together and build and know within inside of our own bodies. And every time we've built that knowing and we build that relationship to the Golden Temple and what New Paradigm Intimacy is, we are actually shifting the template of our society. And really, that's where my heart lies. Like when I first created the New Paradigm Intimacy, I had this envision that I would at least have this for like 25 years. I was like, minimum, minimum 25 years, I'll have this school. And it ended up moving through my fingertips within about, I don't think it was about five. So I was very shocked when the current came in and was like, yep, it's time to release this. It's time for somebody else to take this on and to move with this in the world. And part of that, I believe, was the seeding and the intention of what this actually is. And that's like something that I thought that I might want to share today. And I would also love to hear if there is anything that you guys are looking to hear, understand from me about what the self-pleasure modality is, what the school is about, because I think all of that's important. So yeah, if you do want to just leave anything in the comments right now. What I would love is actually just some words of why you chose to join New Paradigm Intimacy and not one of the other sexuality schools. So if you feel like dropping that into the chat now, it'd be beautiful just to hear and just have a little read of those pieces. Oh, great. Elizabeth just left a comment. It's great. Oh, that's you, Andrew. Yeah, I was like, is that Elizabeth? No, it's not. That makes sense. She said she was going to be on a plane. Beautiful. Yeah, so if anyone wants to leave any comments inside of the chat there, and I'll just pick them up as we go, of just like what it was that drew you to New Paradigm Intimacy. Because this is what I find super curious. Like my experience of New Paradigm Intimacy is it's a little bit different to the other sexuality schools and in the ways that I want to explain today. And I think it's going to really help you with your studies actually as you dive in for those who have been here before again, or if you are having your first time in the New Paradigm Intimacy, it will really help you cultivate your own relationship to what this school is actually about. So I might start going there while you guys are all typing. But the essence of like my story, and I think that a lot of this is already inside of the uh, Kajabi. But I think what I really want to share is that this was not something that was like coming to me through the mental plane. This was not something that came to me and was like, we need this inside of the world. This was something that started to cultivate through my own practice and through my own relationship to um, sexuality, what that even was. Because I started to realize that this idea of what sexuality is in the world, which is often adrenaline fueled and cultivated through friction, cultivated through an idea of what sexuality is, was not actually what sexuality was. And there was a lot of more mysticism that was actually coming through. And I feel like that's actually something that Elizabeth has done beautifully, is really like kept that piece around the mysticism of sexuality and how it actually wants to be expressed through the body. And I believe that this is not just something that, Elizabeth and I are passionate about. I actually think this is something that is shifting in the way that our society is. So, you can come into these schools and these courses and you can learn everything through your mind, and you can understand, how to look at premature ejaculation. You can understand how to look at people that are struggling with orgasm. You can look at all these different things. But ultimately, we're not here to be another GP. And this whole experience of actually like Chat GPT, I think, is even putting all of the GPs into a different space. And I've even been wondering about where doctors and things like that are actually going to be landing in the next like decade or so, when so much of what we don't need from them anymore is to know off by heart what's in those textbooks. We have those textbooks at our fingertips now, and we have sex education at our fingertips in a way that we have never experienced before. And so for me, that really like reflects what I feel like was trying to come in with side of the New Paradigm Intimacy, which is how much of your embodied experience can come through as a practitioner. And this is a big shift inside of the consciousness of how we even think about learning. And some of the challenges that I had when I think I took her through about 120 practitioners during the time of holding the school myself. And the people that would come through, there would be this really strong desire to know exactly what to do inside of a session, to know exactly how to hold a session. And it kept being like, even though I felt like I was addressing it and I felt like I was creating all these like, okay, step by step, this is how you do it, I would continually get that question. And I feel like what it is actually more like a glitch inside of like the feeling of confidence that we know how to approach anybody inside of this space. But the depth of what I feel like New Paradigm Intimacy is about is not meeting whoever comes into your space, into your client space, as somebody that you can diagnose through a book or diagnose through a section in this Kajabi course, you know. What I'm looking at is how do you create the space to meet somebody with pure presence. And that sounds like a meditation almost when you say like presence is how you're going to meet them. But the meditation is slightly like the radio frequency of that meditation, you could say, is slightly different when we're working with sexuality. Because what you're looking to activate is enough of your own life force energy inside of your body to be able to feel what's going on inside of the bodies that you're in front of. And actually, like my husband went to see a GP last week, like an actual doctor, like in the system doctor, and he has some issues with his heart at the moment. And this doctor is like a friend of ours in the community, and he actually was like, "Oh yeah, like I can actually feel something like in my heart instantly as you sit down." Like, and for me, I'm like, that is where doctors are going. That is where like if you can't tune in through your own body with the client or the patient that was in front of you nowadays, it's like you're not, there's no space for you inside of the practitioner realm, is my opinion. Because it's like we really need to be able to feel and be with people in a very different way to anything that's happened before, because so much can be diagnosed through the internet, so much can be learnt through the internet, and we're having this big shift now into how do we find this embodiment of what it is that we know inside of ourselves. And for the GPs, it's going to have them to be able to track inside of their body what's going on inside of their patients on a very medical level. And for us, it's about how can we track that life force, that erotic current. So the biggest like piece that I can give you is like what I would give every single student, which would come to me with like wanting more understanding through the mind of like what to do in a session, is like how deeply present can you become with your own body? And that starts off alone. That's why we have this beginning part of really like coming back to the self, coming back to self-pleasure. That's why self-pleasure is the number one thing that I have, that I still stand by, is what actually creates something that's actually going to shift your whole experience, is how much presence can you bring to your self-pleasure practice? Because the more like your erotic current, and especially when you're in the Golden Temple, when you're helping people, when you're working as a practitioner, when you're working with each other in this way, is changing every single day. Because the beautiful thing about our sexuality is it's not our own. It's never our own, actually. And it is actually part of a collective energetic. So where you live in the world will impact your sexuality, where who you contact with, who you talk to about your sexuality. And if you have the experience of being more of a monogamous person in your life, you might actually really experience a big shift in starting to speak to your sexuality inside of this container, starting to share your erotic current inside of this container with other people when they're sharing their erotic expression, or when you're sharing your erotic expression, because you're starting to get a lot more reference points. And in monogamy, often we're just getting one reference point over and over again, which can feed a certain flavor of our sexuality, actually. And so really, my invitation for all of you is just like, how much can you keep tracking? And tracking is the main thing that I'm doing in any kind of practitioner session. I will share a little bit about what I'm doing now as well in the realms of sexuality, other than being 39 weeks pregnant and ready to pop. I have been doing some live work actually inside of, I mean, most of you know, I think that I live in Australia. So it's Tuesday morning here for me right now. Um, and the tracking for me continues. It's not something that I just do inside of practitioner sessions. It's something I do in workshops. It's something I do when I'm with my partner. It's something I do when I'm with my friends. And I really invite that the same piece for you guys. And that is what we just spoke to, which is the tracking of this, what I call the vertical current. So how is the Eros moving in my body? And also then how is it moving through the collective? So I call that the horizontal current. So more on this direction. How does that move? How do I feel it? How does it actually stir through the system of a group, through the system of my union? Um, Many different ways that it starts to shift in that way. And even when we went into the Golden Temple, then I wasn't just getting a reference point for my own sexuality and my own eros. I was getting a reference point for what is this group feeling? What is this group connection that you guys are cultivating in here? And how does that move through you? So I'd love a little like a few words from you guys. Is this landing? Are you understanding what I'm putting down so far? And if there's any questions, I totally welcome that too. Some hearts. Maybe let's just hear some voices if there's just like one or two words of like how you're feeling as we're going into this transmission.
I have like 1,000 questions,
Go
but
for it.
I won't ask them all. I'm really interested. So my sense was that, so I'm 52, and I just got into this in like, the last year or so. I'm really interested in how you downloaded in your 20s, what you ended up starting. I work with older teenagers, like 17, 18-year-olds, and have my entire life. And so I'm really aware of that phase of life and sort of into being like 25. And I'm just really curious about your connection that allowed this for you. And then I'm also, this is something that came up earlier. So you just mentioned that you're pregnant, and some of us were talking about like perimenopause and menopause, and that it's another transition. And so I'm just anything relevant to like these significant body transitions, and how we're with other people with that, and how we're with ourselves, and any of your wisdom and love around that.
Yeah, awesome. They seem quite similar from my understanding. I have a few girlfriends going through the menopause right now, and I'm like, kind of sounds like pregnancy. So obviously I don't know about it yet, but it for me, from what I'm hearing, it sounds very similar, like these transitions that women go through, and how much the body is like opening to another layer. The main difference that I'm tracking between the pregnancy and the menopause is discernment. Seems to be like a energetic of when the mother is coming online, there's something around like the opening to letting more impact of the synergizing field, like opening up through there. Whereas I feel like when menopause comes, it's like almost the other way. It's like this discernment that starts to come in of like closing up exactly where the eros starts to move from. And I've been tracking like this sort of like the discernment is not like a judgment on other people's eros, but it is like a real, like it definitely feels like the energy moves back through the vertical current a lot more. And then where it ends up activating is, yeah, it seems like it can be very, I feel like I might have to drop a video on some of this because there's quite a lot in there for me right now. But yeah, this piece around like how does this how does it drip through and how does it want to be shared is a really beautiful question mark actually inside of the menopausal threshold. And where it moves during menopause versus when you get to that point where you've had I think it's like 9 cycles without a bleed is super interesting to me. So I will leave that one there for now because I can feel that there's a lot in that topic. But this other idea of like where it downloads from inside of me, there's a little bit, I mean, this has also been a bit of my journey as well. Like I have found myself in a lot of sexuality spaces. And I would say some of the difference between how New Paradigm Intimacy was birthed versus some of the sort of sacred sexuality spaces that I was finding myself in at the time. Yeah, it was like my tracking was like, this is not accurate for me. And then there was the process of finding the others inside of that. So it was like going into these sacred sexuality spaces. And who's been to a workshop, like a tantra workshop? Just show me your hands. Okay, so a lot of like tantric workshops are really, there's like a culture, there's a very deep culture inside of how these places work. I actually don't find any resonance with tantra festivals anymore, and even when I go, I'm like, and then I went to I tried to go to another one, like a shamanic sexuality training the other week, and I was like, fuck, I want to stay, but it's so to sit inside of the realms of how people run these spaces and how they, yeah, like the whole culture of how things are navigated. And one of those cultures is actually boundaries and consent. The way that boundaries and consent is taught, they is super important for so many people. So I'm not like dismissing it as a culture and as a reality, but just for me personally, it wasn't able to teach me what I needed to know about boundaries and consent. So boundaries and consent, from what I see is taught, is very much in the realms of give, take, allow, this kind of Betty Martin Wheeler consent, which can be useful, but it doesn't necessarily speak to the deeper energetics and what I'm super passionate about. And this kind of leads into where I wanted to go as well. So before I just opened up that portal of let's have some questions, I spoke about tracking. And actually that really folds into what your question is, Rachel, of like, where do I find this field from? Like, how did this channel come through me and all those different pieces? It has been my relationship to tracking. And this is something that I invite you guys into when you're in your own self-pleasure and also when you're working with clients as well. Because this piece around how you track and where you're tracking through your own body is, I would say, the biggest piece that you can learn from this experience. And the more you do it and the less more you let go of the mind and needing to understand through the mind, the more powerful you can become as a practitioner. That's what I've seen time and time again through all the people that have been through New Paradigm Intimacy. So I would be in these consent and boundaries workshops, and I'd be like, I'm having to block off my current to go into the mind to work out whether I want to give or take or allow or receive or any of these ideas. And I would notice that this is actually creating actually more danger for me in the field, because I wasn't able to really trust what was actually coming into the field and coming into my awareness. And then this leads into what I was sharing about how I now run sexuality workshops. Like I don't, so I have a thing called Sex Lab that I started running. We actually booked one in for next Tuesday, which is my due date. So maybe a baby's coming to the sex lab. But for me, the whole concept of the sex lab is around like how I track. And the tracking for me is based on two things. One is the evolutionary edge of Eros. So I'm not interested so much in temple spaces, in orgy parties or play parties and things like that. I go to them sometimes. I don't have like a judgment of them, but it's like they don't necessarily activate my deepest interest, my deepest passions. And the reason for that is because when I go there, there is a bit of patterns that I just see playing out time and time again. Like I've been to a lot of them actually, and I just see what I see in society basically, but inside of a conscious frame, conscious sexy frame. And there's the conscious sexy frame is basically that we're going to do the boundaries and consent games, and we're going to do we're going to ask questions, and we're going to find our desires in those different ways. But a lot of that actually comes through a preconceived idea of what you might want from your life. So if you're like lying in bed at home and you're like, oh, I really just like to have a threesome, or I'd like to go and do something like this, it's like it's a preconceived notion of what wants to happen. And then people go to these temple parties and sex parties, and then when they get there, they're like, right, how do I find my threesome? And they're looking in the room for the threesome. And what I think is more powerful and what I'm more interested in is, where is the evolutionary edge of Eros moving us right now? So when I sit in a sex lab, for instance, and that's why I called it sex lab and not a temple, is because I think that there's something that we can start to move from that is beyond that space. And then also this kind of links to my second thing that I track inside of these spaces, not just where's my evolutionary edge of Eros, it's actually instinct as well. So this is one of the reasons why boundaries and consent doesn't really work for me, because it involves coming out of the body into the mind to find what is my boundaries. And this idea of boundaries inside of sex as well, like I don't actually know if it really exists, because who we become when we step into our arousal, who the archetypes that activate through our bodies, the knowing that lives beyond our consciousness is actually way more powerful than we give it credit for. And that is our instinct. That part of you guys that probably have been in experiences where you're like, oh, actually, I think I could actually do a healing on this person. Maybe you don't have those types of brain thoughts, but like your system is working through something with somebody and you're being drawn to do something or work with someone in a certain way. Like that's the priestess, that's your priest, it's your Daka, it's your Dakini, it's the part of you that's actually coming online that has been drawn to do a course like this, that has been drawn to step in and move out of the way of your own desires to actually serve something. And this is another layer of what Sex Lab is about for me. It's not people coming in with their individual traumas and I mean, even the idea of trauma has been a bit of a challenge for me through my process of how I've created the school as well, because it never started inside of that premise. This whole trauma-informed narrative that's come into our collective actually came in after New Paradigm Intimacy was created. And it actually does have some conflicting. We teach it inside of the school because it's an important realm to really understand, because it's such a strong narrative now. But the deeper piece that lives beyond the trauma-informed narrative is really trusting your instinct, really trusting the part of your system and your body, and knowing your body beyond the idea of the mental, to be able to serve the field. And it lives inside of the paradigm that is not one person is broken. Like there's no one person that can be broken. There's no one person that needs a healing. It works on the understanding that we're actually all part of a collective mixing bowl of archetypes and energies that can come together. And actually, when they find the deepest instinct inside of themselves, that layer of trauma that sits above everything actually starts to dissolve, not through your own personal healing journey, but through the collective experience of people coming into Eros. And that's what Eros actually wants. It's not like I have Eros, there's no I in Eros actually. There's just the experience of like, it's a place that exists inside of the world, inside of the field of the collective consciousness. And we can tap into that and we can go there and we can move with that energy. And that's why when we're being a practitioner, it's not really about what I know and what I think and what I believe cures premature ejaculation or not being able to orgasm. It's about really being with what is alive in this moment with Eros. And you'll see that time and time again, because you'll see that Eros is ever changing. Like if I gave you a set of rules of what cures premature ejaculation today, it would be irrelevant next week. Because, like one of the things I used to say when I was teaching inside of the school was like, I'm 34 and I'm the last generation to grow up without internet pornography. I'm the last generation to grow up without dating apps. Like there's a lot of shifts that we are constantly seeing, and now we're seeing AI, and now we're seeing so much more coming into the field. So whatever your system is responding to, we are ancient beings, but we're also modern beings. We are actually dealing with what is alive in the collective field in any given moment. And this is what Sex Lab also does, and what I believe a true temple could really be if we learn to work with instinct over consent and boundaries. And what I invite you actually to start to see the world through as a practitioner, when even if you're not in a temple space, even if you're in like a, just a normal social party, just start to track where the Eros is moving, where life force is moving, where it's repressed, where it is sucking power, where it is overbearing, and start to notice that inside of your own body, because those are the things that you're actually are more enlightening as a practitioner if when you're in a one-on-one space than something you can read inside of the Kajabi. And it's not that the Kajabi course is irrelevant. Like, there's actually so much incredible data through understanding all of these different ways. But what the course will continually bring you back to is how can you get into your body deeper? And this is actually the depth of what the course is inviting. Galina's nodding because she's been there before. But there is so much wisdom inside of your body and inside of each moment. And that's why I think that the new paradigm intimacy has managed to stay relevant for so many years now, because it is holding that evolutionary edge of Eros. And then that kind of, I think that answers your question, Rachel, of like, how did this channel start to open up through me? It wasn't a process of, I mean, I did all the courses, I've learned all the things, like I've done the yards, and I keep doing the yards, looking for the places where I can find the others, because I want to find the others. And I'm mostly disappointed, if I'm completely honest. I'm mostly experiencing the feeling of loneliness. I think that actually that loneliness inside of me is what drives the entirety of my passion for sacred sexuality in general. That experience of like not really resonating with the trauma-informed lens, not really resonating with individuals needing to heal something that's broken inside of their body on a sexuality level. I'm more inside of the realm of we are a collective. And if we continually come together and be with our Eros with others, something powerful can really happen. And I don't know that we can actually work with our Eros completely alone forever to have healing. It doesn't mean you need to have sex with anyone else. It doesn't take away from asexuality. I believe in all of those things. But I do believe that something else happens in an erotic community that cannot be resolved alone. And I have seen that time and time again through Sex Lab. Like, I've had people come in with, complete numbness, premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunctions, all sorts of things. I don't even talk about any of those things inside of Sex Lab. We open up an emergent field, and I let the Eros and the current run through the field, and I have pillars and parameters. And a lot of those pillars and parameters is like, we don't work with boundaries and consent. We work with human decency. We don't work with Victoria policing the space. We work with a collective view of what we feel is accurate. So if we feel like something is off, if we feel like something is, what's the word, like, one of the major shadows of sexuality is power, and power over and trauma occurring, right? Because people have been using this erotic energy out of shadow for so long. So if I see something shadowy inside of the space, yes, I'm like, what I'm actually inviting everybody to do inside of the experience that I'm in is to activate their instinct to say no, to call forward their no, to call forward their moment, because this is what I don't see enough of in the world. And I would say that's another pillar of new paradigm intimacy as well. It's like, it's not just who you're being behind closed doors in your therapy practice when you're working with a client. It's like, who are you becoming actually when you step into this course? And for a lot of people, and those who have been in this course before will testify to this, there is an experience of becoming somebody that you're not at the beginning of the course, and starting to express that and starting to share that. And that, I want you to know, is actually part of the process of becoming a sexuality practitioner. It's not just getting your little certificate and putting it on your wall and you do this practice and nobody knows about it. It's actually coming out and really trusting your instinct and calling forward the culture that you want to see inside of the world. Because that's what this really is about. It's not just it's not about seeing clients, really. It's actually about a big cultural shift, about a movement that is sweeping through our society for something to change. And we are just one sector of it. We've seen in the last 10 years, breathworks coming in, you know, different forms of medicines coming in, all these different things, and we're holding point for Eros. And it's actually our role and our job to keep meeting that, because Eros is ever changing, we're ever changing. And if we don't keep meeting that through our instinct and through, because how many times do we see something in the world that we're like, that is fucking shit and I hate it, whether it's war, whether it's, you know, crime, whether it's, you know, violence against whoever, and we don't do anything about it because we can't do anything about it. And this for me is about, if people had more access to their instinct, to their inner power, we wouldn't see that in the world. And that's what we're going to need to have to be experiencing around sexuality. The voice of, no, this is not what this is going to be. And we can't look to the police or the, you know, when I talk about my circle with the sex lab, I always say, like, don't look, like, you can look to me if you can't find your voice. But what I am looking for and what you should be looking for is your own voice to say no when you feel like something's off. And that's the problem, is if we see things that are off in the world, we see power corrupting Eros all the fucking time, and we do nothing about it. In social scenarios, in sexual scenarios, inside of other people's relationships, because it's not our business, da 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 da. But if we are working with our instinct, we're not looking and second guessing whether we should or shouldn't say something, what's culturally appropriate and not appropriate. We're looking to actually create the culture through our instinct. And that is a big piece that I would love people to really understand around new paradigm intimacy and what this really is. Yeah. Just going to let us breathe that in for a moment. So just taking a deep breath. And I would like to leave those two notions inside of the container for the time that you guys will be exploring this and exploring yourself through this container. The questions are like, where am I not moving from instinct in your life, in the container? And the second one is, where is my evolutionary edge of Eros now? Because I don't know how Elizabeth runs this anymore, but I mean, I used to run it pretty rogue. And it would involve a lot of, you know, backlash sometimes, because I really wanted people to speak from that place of instinct. If you see something, if I say something that pisses you off or doesn't feel true for you or doesn't feel accurate, like, I wanted that to be brought in. I wanted that to be a part of this. Because if any time that one person stands as the authority and says, this is what this is what Eros is, we're not it. We're not on the mark. It takes the collective to understand and know what Eros is in any given moment. And the world is trying to shift to that format, I believe. And it's a very difficult format to work out how to hold. But there is a power in continually asking the question, in letting authority be questioned, in trusting your own instinct, in knowing that you get to create the society that you're living in. And also, like, this isn't a classroom. If any of you guys want to unmute and share what's going on for you, like, this is totally welcome.
I'd like to contribute. It keeps on
Please.
moving. As you were speaking, it kept on like coming and going and returning in a different way, which I think is kind of what you're referring to anyway. What I wanted to share is that dipping into this space for the second time, it feels as though, although this was the conversation was about sexuality, but it allowed me to connect to the whole of my body. And now also kind of picking up the subject on menopause, where I find myself, my body going through it now. It's actually extremely helpful that I'm connected to all of my body. So this experience is not at all felt as any kind of loss, but rather a lot of just a completely different access to completely different eros that comes from other sources that I never thought that it would become available. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Amazing. Love that.
And I have my little hand raised. I don't know if you can hear me,
Yeah, we
but
got you.
I hope I make sense. It's after midnight here in France. But yes, I want to share that I'm listening and following, and I'm so sleepy. And part of me is like, whoa, whoa, I feel the ground moving underneath me because I want to get and understand what you're saying. And then I'm also thinking of my work. I work with couples. And when I first started thinking about Eros and life energy, I thought I made it up. And then I saw that I didn't. But what I see over and over and over again, not to stereotype, but is the man's flame, so to speak, so big, so demanding, I want, and it makes the woman flame so small. So it's so interesting what you said about consent, but I just I felt parts of my body go, no. But I get what you mean about by the brain, and it doesn't make sense. Like it's almost like what you're talking about. This is beyond and beautiful. But I'm working with people who like have never touched themselves before, or have a lot of Catholic. So I don't know. I'm just thinking of where my people are at, and maybe you see them all in the same pool that they can get there too. But I take tiny baby steps with them.
Yeah, I love that. It's very important and very powerful. And I also do marriage counseling and couples work in that way as well. And I see a lot of what you're speaking to. I actually see a lot of the other as well, where the woman's flame is rather big now because they've often done a bit of this kind of work in some way. And that they're looking for something from their male-bodied partner that they aren't able to receive, which is also a challenge inside of where our collective is right now. And when I say I'm anti-boundaries and consent, it's not anti-boundaries and consent in the form of like, no one should have boundaries. I have boundaries, of course, I have consent, but it's how I weave it and how I move with it, And what I see, one of the shadows that I see inside of the sacred sexuality space, let's say when these women get activated as well through the realms of these workshops that we're a part of, like this industry, is like, okay, so now I need like 3 hours of foreplay to open and like a flower, and I think that there's just more cultural narrative sometimes around how things need to be to do, and it can be super gendered, unfortunately, as well, because there are stereotypical things that are happening in society. But what I want to speak to with how much I'm seeing, like, I'm seeing the piece that you're speaking to where the man's flame is very big and the woman's flame is small. And I'm also seeing a big shift in that as well, because I'm personally receiving a lot of the clients that have found me through my work, right? So I see the ones that have done a lot of activation inside of themselves and their flames are big, but they are very particular around how they want to work with it. So it's like all these little nuances all the time inside of how, like how practitioner work occurs, And I think, and like if you're seeing a lot of people from mainstream society that haven't had much access to tantra workshops and things like that, then of course you're probably seeing the ones where the men have the big flame and the women have the small flame. And I think that, like I said, like I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching boundaries and consent in the sacred sexuality template for people that it will benefit. Like, I'm all for that. Like, I'm not against that at all. But I think when, as practitioners, if we are living inside of that paradigm ourselves, we might be missing something that is for our clients, because I believe that it's so ever changing, our work. And if we're not able to meet it from the unknown, from the mystery, from that place inside of ourselves that doesn't have a culture, that's what I've seen that's been problematic. And that's what I think New Paradigm Intimacy is about. It's like, how much can you connect into the mystery of each moment and be so present with the clients that are in front of you without any story or without any ideas? Because that is something I've seen in a lot of other practitioner programs, is like, men have this way, women are like this, and and it's just not fucking true. So I really love what you're saying, and it is a thing, and like everything, it's ever evolving. So I'm excited to see what like the evolution of your practice as well, through some of what you end up exploring through your own self-pleasure practice. And I'm grateful that you're here for that evolutionary edge of Eros. Yeah. Are there any more words before I come into wrapping up? Alice, yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I think this is like just a massive piece about like specifically in my experience about when it comes to like boundaries and consent and how it gets into the mind. I mean, I'm just going like I'm trying to speak for the mind. Is like I can see, even sense right now I'm flipping back and forth, and because I find they're helpful in like training. Like they're kind of like training wheels. I feel like, because I feel like sometimes like I'm a child and not knowing where my boundaries are. And I'm also severely like I try to do everything in my power to not do harm. So I find myself, okay, like this is like, but I can see the scarcity in that as well, because then I'm shrinking my arrows too, because I'm coming from like a fear place. So it's an interesting back and forth that I'm working through when it comes to that component, because yeah, it's also being a male in a female dominated space. I found I got a lot of I guess resistance to my presence or whatnot, and but external. But I mean, coming back to that whole that there aren't that that it's an ongoing experience, and the instinctual component. I don't know. It's just it's a big concept for me to fully grasp. I can see right now, but because I definitely feel like I've got my own wounds that I haven't come to terms with, but um, it it just feels like there's some hope in that, because I definitely have that I'm broken thinking going on. So um, it's very hopeful that I could actually, there's someone's talking about breaking out of that, because I definitely know within that I could be so much greater. I have so much more to give. I have so much more to experience in my life. So, and thank you.
Beautiful. Are you open to a clear reflection? Just because I've seen you in the space for a long time, and I've been tracking with you some of these pieces.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, my only reflection and what I think you could take into this next round, if you wanted to, would be just like, how much can you let go of the idea that you're walking with, I am the male. Like, it's like it's like I feel all of the male collective on your shoulders, and you don't need to carry that, especially in this space. And I just invite you to reach out to anybody from purely your instinct, and keep receiving the reflections if they feel true, you know, and keep letting the collective refine you, because that, I think that is how we create, how we let go of some of that stuff, that baggage of I'm a man and now I need to realize this is how I come across because I'm in the male body. You know, there's something inside of that that gets to be let go inside of sacred sexuality spaces. And I think that's the power of some of these rooms that we're creating, you know. So yeah, that would be my invitation, is like, how much can you let go of the idea that you're a man, therefore this is what people believe about you, and step forward with whatever's bold, whatever's authentic, whatever's real. Keep inviting the feedback from others. If you're not getting the results or the communication that you're desiring, just ask exactly why. And if people feel like they can give you feedback, they will, and if they can't, they won't. You know, it's like sometimes that is just the process of just letting go of some of those layers. Cool.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Alrighty. Well, this has been very beautiful. I really appreciated hearing some of your voices as well, and hearing what's moving for some of you. If there are any questions, I recommend putting them into the Telegram group, the New Paradigm one, and I can answer for the next week or so probably. Yeah, I probably won't be so available in this next stage, but I will for the next week or so. So if you do have anything come up, please just put it into that space, and just inviting you to connect on social media if you desire to. It's just Victoria Bardović on all the platforms. I'm sure I'm going to hear from some of you again later down the track, and yeah, I'm just excited to see where this round goes and what comes out of it. So yeah, stay connected to the Golden Temple, and thank you for listening to me today.
Victoria, can I just ask, does baby have a name, just so we can all picture baby journey, safe journey?
The baby doesn't have a name or gender yet, so we don't know
Okay.
any.
Okay.
Yeah, mystery baby. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, and sending you lots of care and well wishes for your safe delivery and for the health of the baby and the family. It was a pleasure to hear you. This is my first time experiencing you live, and I've had lots of time seeing your work on the back end, and just appreciate the level of resonance that you still carry so beautifully. And just the feeling, the lightness and the eros of like resonance is here. So I'm feeling that very powerfully. Thank you so much. And please feel free to shut your phone off at any point in time this week. Don't worry about us. Elizabeth will be excited to listen to this call when she does get home. And thank you everybody for showing up, current and past students. It's so lovely to see everyone this evening, today, on this call, whatever day it is, whatever time it is.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
All right, see everyone soon. Thank you.